That was Christmas Eve Sarajevo 1224 by the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And Ben and I played it straight from the charts of the Morristown Uke Jam. So take the link in the video description, download the free ukulele song sheet, grab your own ukulele and your own partner, and you can play right along with this video. In just a moment, we're going to do tutorials on what each of us played, covering everything. And at the very end, a slow motion close-up play along that you might find helpful. But right now, if you like the video, please like the video with a thumbs up. If you want lots more, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want hundreds more free downloadable ukulele song sheets, each with a link to its own free video tutorial and play along, then check out our Dropbox and then come play with us. Okay, now, I just have to tell you, this isn't crazy hard. We're not professionals, but it's not a beginner song, and I don't have a beginner version of it. It's not easy. It's not. So you could probably play a simplified version of it just by cutting out the hard parts and playing chords along or something like that. But I'm just going to go over what we played. Okay, so the repetition, this part that starts out, my part, it's almost a G minor, except I'm picking up and putting down my index finger. That's it. So, sorry. By the way, for this, I have my 4 strong fingers. I only have 4 strings, so I don't need my pinky. And I've got a finger on each, and so you know which one I'm plucking. I'm plucking the assignment there. So I'm plucking with my ring finger twice. And that's it. And then eventually it goes, you notice I drop my pinky, and then I'm flattening out my ring finger, and I go back to it. And then, okay, here we go now. It changes to 3/4 time. In other words, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yes, I'm playing with a low G. Ben's part, I believe you could play with either a low G or a high G. He played with a high G. Mine kind of requires a low G in order to do this. You can't go all the way down like that without the low G, so sorry. You need one of the two of you needs to be a low G if you're going to do it that way. But then, so this part, sorry, I'm trying to only play the lowest 2 strings, just those. I want it to be really a bass sound. So I'm just kind of plucking right there. And that's it. And then he starts, and I go up here, and I've got 2 fingers on the 3rd and 5th fret of my A string, and then I've got my ring finger down here on the E string, the 2nd string. So this time now, I'm not doing my 4 fingers for the 4 strings. I've got these 2 plucking along as if this is a bass. And by the way, I found this to be much easier if I'm actually holding it kind of like a bass. I don't play ukulele holding it like this usually, but I'm kind of got my hand going straight down almost. That's how I'm doing it. I start with my middle finger. So it's 3 times on the A string. And then the 2nd string. So 1st, 2nd, 1st, 2nd. And that's it. And then we're all the way down to here. And I'm still sticking with these 2 fingers. These are the 2 fingers I'm doing. These are the ones I'm working with. This is the bottom of the 1st page now. So I'm using the middle 2 fingers of my left hand, and I'm going back and forth between my index and middle finger here. And then, and now this one is one I had to work on. So the way I'm doing this, sorry. Actually, I do it a few different ways. I don't do it the same way all the time, but It's easier to do fast than it is to do slow. If I do it fast, I don't have to pluck as many times. See how I'm hammering on. Now I'm back to each finger having its own string, but I pluck the second string and hammer on and slide it. Hammer on the first string. And then, sorry. That's it. Keep on sliding it like that. Second page. I'm back to using these two, and well, and my thumb. That's it. Sorry? That's it. And then, by the way, now I'm holding with my pinky. I'm holding that G minor because I don't want to hear this. I want to hear it lower. I want that to be the highest voice. You notice for these, I'm stabilizing myself with my thumb on the fourth string. And I have to do that for, what is that? 28 measures in a row, which sometimes I have trouble with, keeping with consistency. But it helps a great deal if I have the right posture on my hand. If my hand is sort of uncomfortably hanging down here. And then, again, the pinky holds on to it. And I got a dozen measures like that, just on the G minor, with my pinky holding it, so it's the low G minor. And then back and forth. And then I've got the patterns I've already shown you. In fact, the rest of the song is the patterns I've already shown you, except for the chords. The chords in the sort of finale, I wanted to hear this. Sorry. I wanted to hear. So I did a closed G minor here. Then an F. Then I'm holding onto the string again with an E flat there and a D. Just like that, and then all the way up. Now the nice thing, this is an E flat shape all the way on the 5th fret, but so I'm going up all the way up here, and then it's an E shape, and I'm just stepping down with the E shape. That's it. And then all the way up to the 10th fret with a B minor shape, and then a B flat shape. And then make it sharp, 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 and hang. And that's my part. Here comes Ben with his part.
Hi, I'm Ben, and I'm going to walk you through the second ukulele part, which is underneath the first part. It's also the one that's notated in red. And so since it shares a lot of sections with the other part that my dad just walked you through, I'm not going to talk about those, but I'll just walk you through the new sections that have a bunch of new notes. So the opening here is slightly different, but it's basically the same notes starting in a different spot, so we'll skip that. We'll go over to this section, that's the first section in, once we've made it into the tempo of the rest of the song. This is the part that's got a bunch of 7s and 10s here. and in the 3/4 time. And so for starters, this section I use my these 3 fingers, and I start with my thumb and my middle finger to get that 7 and 10, since the strings are separated by the E string. But then when we move on to the E string and the A string together for 10 and then 10/8, then I start using fingers that are next to each other, so I'll use my pointer and middle finger. Then we have that extra 8. I'll use my pointer finger so I can slide down, pointer finger on my left hand, so that I can slide down, and then I can do that again with my middle and pointer fingers. And then we have that 9 into the 7/10. And so for that I use my ring finger, but if you wanted to do the kind of the same sliding motion, that works. And then I would suggest using either your pointer and pinky, or maybe pointer and ring finger, but fingers that are separated because it feels like a little bit of a stretch. Then we've got the whole section here repeats. Then we have this the section that's the kind of motif of the song. There's a couple different ways to play this, and so you can definitely do it like this, the sort of bass walk way. You can also, if you want, and so that method is very crisp because you're playing every single note, but because you have to play every single note, it feels a bit slower. So something that I, at different points in the song, did is using my pointer finger here for hammer-on. So we've got 1, and then 0, and then hammer-on to 1, and then the 3. And so this finger actually ends up just doing this. 1, 1, 1, 1, right? And so I go back and forth between the fingers, but they're basically just hitting quarter notes like that. And this hammer-on here is taking care of that fast bum 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 bum. And so it is a slightly less crisp sound, but it's an easier way to do it with your fingers. And so for this section, I believe in the recording, I did the more crisp back and forth with the fingers, but then at the end of the song, I used the hammer-on because it felt easier and more consistent, even though it was slightly less crisp. Then we come up on this section, which will happen over and over again over the course of the song. And here I'm definitely using that bass walk technique. I'm starting with my pointer finger, and every time I have to change strings, I get to start with my pointer finger. Which is nice, because certainly between my pointer finger and my middle finger, my pointer finger is the more coordinated one, and it's a little bit shorter, so it's easier to move up strings with my pointer finger. So if you start with your pointer finger, then you get to move with your pointer finger every time you move to a new string. And that section's really not too bad. Now this next section is played in both parts. This is this part, and then followed by... there's a couple different ways to play that, and I know that my dad plays a little bit differently than I do, so I'll talk you through that part. Again, just like this section, you can certainly play it by walking your fingers up and playing every single note, but again, the song's really fast, and that would certainly slow me down. So I play with, I believe, 3 different hammer-ons. So you've got here, open, and then you have 2, hammer-on 3, open A, hammer-on 1, 3A, hammer-on 5, and then finish it off. So you've got hammer-on, hammer-on, hammer-on. And it makes it a lot easier on your right hand because you don't have to pick every note, and so it looks like this. And so kind of like the other section, you get to sort of pick quarter notes, and then your left hand will take care of those eighth notes, so that your left hand takes care of the quick notes, and your right hand doesn't get bogged down. I find that this technique, because you're running across the fleshy part of your finger, sometimes for me, when I'm pushing on it, it gets slow if I try to do too many notes. And the other thing that I think will speed up this technique is if you make sure you're not trying to play too loudly, too forcefully. If you play really forcefully, your fingers are going to get caught. But if you play gently, then you can move back and forth really, really quick. And then the next section is the same thing as the opening, right? So we've got here, 0, and then hammer on from 2 to 3. And then open string, and then here. And I actually completely skipped that 1 where you've got 2, 0, 2, 3, 0, 1, and the chord. And I just completely skip the 1 because it's really hard. And so it'll be faster if I just omit that part. So moving on to this next part, which is definitely, there's 2 times where the line goes all the way up here into up towards the 17s. Definitely in my opinion, the hardest parts of the arrangement, for me anyway. And unlike the section that's down here, the strings are going to be less resonant up here, so you do have to play every single note. So there's not too much of a trick here other than practicing it. Yeah, and I start on my pointer finger, but whatever works for you. Yeah, great. And then on this section, you've got those. And so I just use the same finger. I just use my ring finger and just slide that up to every new note. So moving on, we go into these chords, and they're really not too bad. It moves on to this. And I use my thumb for this entire section, for the chords and also for the individual notes. Then you slide down here really quick to something that's not too hard, these chords strumming. The chords themselves aren't hard, but getting from here to here can be really, really tricky. So try not to get your hands too tense when you're playing the notes and playing the plucking the strings up here so that you can slide down. Now, I accidentally, as I was practicing, I started doing this and then accidentally sliding up here. But I think it sounds pretty dank. So if you can't get up fast enough, right, and then go ahead and slide, and it sounds pretty cool. Then you do that one more time, and you just have a chord to finish it off. This next section, I play the whole thing with using my right hand thumb. This is the section that sounds like this. And again, I find this part pretty tricky, but I don't really think there's much of a hack for it. You just kind of gotta figure it out and find it in your left hand. Because getting up to those 17s and remembering where that is can be a tricky thing. When you get to the section right after this that has 2 notes per, definitely make sure you're always employing your pinky for one of these notes so that you can get that stretch. And I think the whole section benefits because it's just open, exposed notes. It benefits from a little vibrato if you're able to put something on that, just to give it a little bit more color. And there's several sections throughout the song where that's the case. Moving on down to the section that sounds like this. That goes 3-1, 3-2. Just single note at a time, so really not too bad. Slide up to the 10, and you have the same melody, single note at a time. And I'm doing this, again, just with my thumb on my right hand. I'm still using my thumb to make these chords here. And the chords look a little daunting because they're up so high, but after you get this sort of A minor position thing going on up here, all of these are that sort of B flat position. It's the same finger position. You just slide down to a new fret. And that takes care of that section. Then you have this section again. You've got a chord. And we're up to the next section that's up real high in the 17s. This one's maybe actually a little bit harder than the first one because you have to use your pinky here at the end. But again, I think it's just a matter of getting comfortable. Definitely up here, the higher that you are on the fretboard, the more that you're pressing, the more the difference in height from the fretboard will be between strings. So I don't think I said that particularly clearly, but if I press down here, these strings are pretty much at the same height. If I press up here, this string feels pretty low, and this one feels pretty high. So you're more likely when you're up high to get caught in your right hand here. So definitely play lightly up here. If you're playing too aggressively, too strongly, your fingers are going to get caught. Moving on to the next page, it's pretty much the same stuff, just slightly different notes. You've got this, and still just using those fingers back and forth, that kind of bass-like technique. We got another one of these things, and another one of these things. And then you're on to the end, which is hard in that it's so repetitive that it's easy to make stupid mistakes. So in this section, I used the hammer-on version of this, because there's certainly nothing wrong with plucking each one, but I think it's going to be hard and your fingers are going to get tired. So I elected to do the hammer-on, which, like I said, is slightly less crisp, but gets the job done. And we're kind of in the background anyway, so better that we not ruin the song than that we make it absolutely perfect. And then you just got to slide down, and you've got yourself a chord. And that should be, I think, everything for that ukulele part.